And we are now live streaming.
Okay, thank you. So I'll call to order the ad hoc committee meeting for the lease agreement with Tango Yankee LLC, doing business as Business Aircraft Center. It's March 18th. It's 6:50 p.m. Present are, and on the committee, the three members is myself, Jack Knapp is the chairman. We have Councilman John Priola and Councilman Fred Visconti. That is the ad hoc committee. We also have with us Corporation Counsel Bob Yemen, Director of Finance David St. Hilaire, Director of Planning and Zoning Sharon Calitro. We have the City Tax Assessor Donna Murphy. We have the Airport Administrator Mike Safranek. We also have the Director of what is this title? Director of Business Advocacy, Roger Palanzo, and we have the Mayor's Chief of Staff, Dean Esposito. So those are the city people that are with us. We also have in attendance Linda and Santos, I believe it's Santoro, which are the property owners, the owners of Yankee Tango, and their attorney representing them, Christopher Weldon from Keitel Weldon and Cunningham. So those are the people that are in attendance. So what I'll do is read in to the record the request by, so this ad hoc was called by Mike Safranek, the airport administrator, pertaining to this lease. So it's sent to Mayor Joseph Cavo from Mike Safranek on December 24th, 2020 for the lease agreement between Tango Yankee LLC, DBA Business Aircraft. And in it is attached, please find the lease between the city of Danbury and Tango Yankee LLC, doing business as Business Aircraft Center. So this lease needs to be approved by the aviation, or this lease has been approved by the Aviation Commission unanimously, and we are now presenting it to you for your review and consideration. So that is the purpose of us being here tonight. I'll lead off by saying that, I've been a part of city politics for a long time, and about 10 years ago, this same group with Linda and Santos came before us looking for a lease over at the airport. I think Paul Rotello might even have been on that ad hoc with me at the time. And it did not go through at the time for various reasons, but we thank Linda and Santos for their persistence, for working with us here in the city, at the city airport. So, we look forward to addressing your presentation and seeing what direction the council cares to go on this. But again, thank you. Thank you for your time and effort to the city. Okay. That being said, normally I would lead off, and I will. Bob Yemen is with us with Corporation Counsel. So Bob, this is our first time working together. If you could just please give us a brief overview of what we're looking at here. Then I'm going to turn it over to Mike Safranek for his points and Roger Palanzo, and then we'll dive into the to the team. You know what? For the record, because I don't think I announced it, I have in attendance also ex officio members, Mike Esposito, Warren Levy, Dwayne Perkins. These are all councilmen, and Councilman Paul Rotello. Is there anybody else that's with us as a councilman that I missed? Because I can't see everybody. So, okay, thank you. All right, so that's where we're at. If I could have Bob, you're there, I see in the upper corner. So if you could just give us a brief synopsis here.
Absolutely, just a bit of housekeeping. We're going to be sending you in about 2 minutes an update of the draft we sent out early this morning, and to everybody, I think. And it contains the 3 changes that were recommended by you and by the assessor and by Mike Safranek, sort of last minute changes before we get into the meat of the lease that were made late this afternoon. Unfortunately, I wasn't in the office. I wasn't able to make them, but we made them just now, and we're going to send them to everybody. And Mike, you can opine on this when you're up too, but we just sent it out about 30 seconds ago. So the draft everybody is looking at is the most recent draft, except for these three changes. In 1.3, we eliminated the ability of the tenant to exercise the right of first refusal on non-contiguous portions of the airport. So the original draft that went out allowed them to exercise the right of first refusal on contiguous parcels, but also on any other parcel in the airport, whether contiguous to them or not. So we just eliminated that. That was the principals involved felt pretty strongly about that. So, and the only other substantive change since the draft that went out this morning is in 8.1 and 8.2. Yeah, maybe I'll let Mike speak to that when he's up, but it has to do with the new airport improvement fee. We cleaned up the language in 8.1 and 8.2 to make it much clearer, based in large part on our assessor's helpful comments earlier today. So 8.1 and 8.2 aren't really substantively changed. They're just much clearer, I believe. And you'll see that in a draft that just went out about a minute ago. Hopefully we caught everybody, and maybe it can be further circulated even while we're participating in the meeting to make sure everybody has the draft with those three changes on it. But I don't think it's the end of the world, because you are looking at the most current draft, except for those three changes, which you're now aware of. We've worked for, I would say, about a year and a half on this first major lease initiative over there. And it's our intention that this is going to be we want to get this right, because this is going to be the template going forward for future leases at the airport. We've been unhappy with the leases over there for literally decades. So we want to modernize them, and we want to make them more business-like, and that's what this project attempted to do and is attempting to do. So, and from a business standpoint, the primary improvement from the city's perspective is the revenue goes up dramatically in this new lease. So, perhaps, Mike, do you want to?
Yeah, so let me control that. So yeah, so
Sure.
thank you on that, and
Yeah.
we'll make sure, Mr. Weldon, I don't know if you've gotten a copy of what we're talking about. We'll have to get that over to you.
I'm
But-
okay. This is Chris
Yeah.
Weldon.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I looked at the sections you referred to. I drafted the lease, so I'm pretty familiar with all the aspects of it. And
Sure.
we're fine on, and I'll get a copy from Bob and talk with my clients. But
Okay.
those changes don't sound significant, and I don't think they should be a problem.
Excellent. Thank you, Chris. So yeah, so we're in it, obviously procedurally, this is the ad hoc committee. It still has to go before the entire council. So that'll give us time for you and Bob to communicate, to make sure that we've got everything buttoned up before the final vote comes on the city council, if we get to that point after tonight. So that's where we're at.
Chairman, through the chair, can I ask Chris what's the most recent version of the draft he has? He should have a draft from this afternoon, Attorney Weldon.
I have the 442 draft.
That's it, yeah.
Okay.
That doesn't contain the three changes I just alluded to.
I understand that. I saw that.
Yeah.
I followed you.
Because I wasn't available when they were transmitted. So other than that, you have the working draft.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
I'd like to turn it over now to airport guy, Mike Safranek, our airport administrator, who has put a lot of time and effort and work into this. So Mike, if we could hear from you. And you got to take it off mute. That's how this works. You take it off mute and then you talk. There you go. Good job.
Like be on mute, so I figured I would just keep. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee members and council members. As Bob had said, this is the first time we've actually sat down and reconfigured these airport leases in probably 30 years. So this is the template we will move forward with. I'm very excited about this. I was told a year ago from the director of finance and from the mayor, the airport needs to raise more money. So the powers that be sat down and said, all right, let's figure out a way to get more money into the airport. Let's figure out a way to alleviate these, what we called sweetheart leases that were done 30, 35 years ago, where it just wasn't generating any money for the airport. Although I'd like to share my screen, but I'll try to do it verbally. Currently, Business Aircraft Center total pays the city $34,000 a year. This new proposed lease will increase that revenue stream to $102,000 a year. So it is a significant 300% increase. What we've also done is we've added what I call the airport improvement fee. And this is a unifying fee, if you will, because some of the fees on the airport are a through the fence fee. Some leases, the individuals pay taxes on the land. Some pay a user fee, and nothing is uniform. So what I wanted to do, what we all want to do, myself, Bob Yeaman, Dean, Roger, and the others, we wanted to create one lease that fits everybody so that we're not comparing apples to oranges. And we feel this is a good way to do it. So what we have to look at is that though we're saying that the per acre lease is $8,000 per acre, there's also the airport improvement fee, which is the exact same amount. So really it's $16,000 an acre when you look at the total revenue that's coming in. So that's a very big point. Currently, it looks as though BAC is paying about $2,200 an acre, and that's going to $16,000 an acre. So this is a significant increase on that side. And it continues to pay tax on the building, as he always has been. What this does is for all the parties is it secures this particular piece of property that'll continuously have a good landlord, a fiscally conservative landlord who's going to build and expand. That's part of the lease. Mr. Silvestro wants to add more hangars at his cost. And then what happens is when the lease runs out, the hangars revert back to the city. That's how all the airport leases are. So that's an important component. The entire time he will be paying taxes on the building itself, and also the land fee lease of $8,000 per acre increased with CPI every year, and this new airport improvement fee that we're calling it. And by calling the airport improvement fee, like I said, it unifies all these other terms we've used over the years that really don't fit. The main goal of calling this airport improvement fee is to be able to dictate and to articulate just what kind of revenue the airport's bringing in. The question that always comes up is, does the airport do well? Are we making money? Are we losing money? Well, there's so many different types of revenue titles that it's very hard to give it a streamlined picture. So this airport improvement fee, so when David St. Hilaire, the finance director, says, hey, Mike, what's going on in the airport? I can give him a more succinct view of what's going on, not have to say, well, we have the through the fence fee, then we have the land tax fee, then we have the user fee. It's one size fits all. The other big component is, I think Councilman Visconti and Councilman Knapp and Councilman Pirola was told by myself was the state of Connecticut is no longer giving us 7% on all of our federal grants. They're maxing it out at $40,000 a year now. So $1 million grant, we used to receive 140, 150,000 from the state. Now we're not going to receive that amount. Now it's capped at 40. So when I go to the planning and zoning director and I say, listen, we need more money for our capital improvement, I can point and say, look, we're bringing in this revenue. The airport is not getting it from the state anymore, but we do have a revenue stream that's tangible. And I think that's a big bonus for those on the airport, because a lot of times the airport users will say, well, where's all my money going? I'm paying, $100,000 a year, $200,000 a year in taxes and fees and fuel flowage and permits and all that. This way here, it's more succinct. I think it's better accounting, at least in my opinion. And that's why we put this airport improvement fee in. And thanks to Councilman Priola, he made it simple. Originally, the crafting was very, very complicated and it was very difficult. And he said, let's keep it simple. And that's how we streamlined it from the original version, maybe 4 months ago, to where it is now, where it mirrors the per acre fee. And John, I thank you for that. That was just perfect. Less complicated, much easier. Provisions 8.1 and 8.2 in the lease go to that, and I think Donna, the assessor, Ms. Murphy, she streamlined 8.1 and cleaned it up and made it very succinct about what the tax burden will be and so forth. And that was a little convoluted in previous, and now it's pretty clear cut. We streamlined 8.2, which is the airport improvement fee, made it more palatable and easier to grasp. The other component on this lease is that this is going to be predicated for 2 more leases coming up. Once this template is passed, we have the Danbury Aviation that wants to renew their lease, and we have Reliant Aircraft who wants to renew their lease. And this new lease here, this template, will easily make that much faster and more efficient to get these new leases online for better revenue streams. The other component is that there's an option to lease an extra 2 acres for a significant hangar increase. Now, I want to address that really quickly, and I don't want to take too much time, but when I say an increase in hangar space, that does not mean we're increasing the runway. It does not mean we're going to have bigger, louder planes. I know that's everybody's concern. What's happening is that Danbury Airport's niche in the grand scheme of things is basically a small corporate jet and down from there. That size aircraft and lower. We're not going to compete with Oxford. We don't have the runway distance. We don't have the obstruction clearances. We can't compete with them. They have about $1.5 billion worth of aircrafts there. They have planes that can go from here to Japan nonstop. That's what Oxford has. We're not going to compete with that. Our niche is going to be the much smaller planes that do cost $1.5 million, $1.4 million. So the idea is a person spends $1.5 million on an aircraft. They don't want to leave it outside where it's going to, be exposed to the weather and so forth. So we need hangars. So it's not necessarily, creating more air traffic per se. It's putting these $1 million planes in hangars so they don't rot in the hot sun or in the winter. So that's what this hangar expansion is going to do for us. Take these planes and put them inside. And as we know, or as maybe we don't know, but Danbury Airport, for a small airport with a lot of obstructions, we're in the top 3 in New England in terms of airport traffic. So we are a busy airport. We just don't have the bigger aircraft that Oxford or Bridgeport or those type of airports with longer runways have. That's not going to be our niche. That never will be our niche. Not with the obstructions we have, unless we make a tremendous capital expense for the future. But that's not where we are right now. Right now, we are addressing it. And the idea is build it and they will come. We build these hangars. These $1 million planes will go inside. And Mr. Chairman, is there anything else you want me to touch on?
No, that'll be good for now. And then I'm going to turn over to Roger also, but that gives us a basic overview of your position on this and what that's what I had asked you for. So thank you.
I'll mute myself again.
Excellent. We all appreciate that. Okay. Now, before I turn it over to our counsel for questioning, Roger Palanzo, our business advocacy director, has been very actively involved in this and done a lot of work on it. So, Roger, if you could just speak to what we had spoke about yesterday, as well as, I've heard from you several times as to the difference in the airport today as before and what it really means to us moving forward. So just give us that brief synopsis, if you will.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to say, when I say we, I mean all of us have been tasked to make our airport modern, make it up to date, do what we need to do. Mayor Boughton tasked me years ago now, 3 years ago, to.
Oh, you're freezing up on mine. I think he's freezing up, Taylor.
Yeah, he's frozen.
I could go scream at him. He's in the other room, but I think he'll hear me if I do it here. Let me try to dial him in his office.
We are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
All right, I'm gonna have him come use my computer.
Okay.
Pretty good, Dean.
Yeah, what was that?
Am I back?
Sign language.
There you are. There's Roger.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay, maybe it was better the other way, but here we are. I don't know what happened. We just disconnected from the internet here. Pardon?
Okay, well, you're good now, so all systems go.
Good. I don't know where I left off, but I'm going to start with, we interviewed all the FBOs on the airport. And we discussed their concerns, what they thought needed improvement, how well their businesses were operating at the time. And then we also took a lot of time and reviewed the last master plan that was made for the airport. Had a lot of interviews and discussions with Mike Safranek about all of what was going on, as he has been there and has a lot of detail about the interactions there between the FBOs and the airport staff. Our goal and the goal set by the mayor, and then of course carried on by Mayor Cavo, is to improve the airport, to make it a business-friendly airport, to allow our FBOs to flourish there, and to allow and open up as much space as possible for new hangars and new business to come to our airport. And then there's a much longer plan that we're trying to formulate as well. But for now, what we are trying to do is activate what property we have on the airport for hangars. And Santo was the first person that during our interview said, I want to build more hangars. I wanted to build more hangars 10 years ago, and something happened to the fact that that didn't happen, that never came to fruition. So here we are again, trying to get hangars built so that way our FBOs can flourish and that the city of Danbury can start realizing revenue. We put together a plan in conjunction with Mike Safranek and our corporation council that not only eliminates poor leases that we've had in the past, but presents a model lease for us to move forward with all our new hangar leases and other leases with our FBOs that we currently have there on the airport. So what we want to do is work with Santo. We have worked with their attorneys for a while. It's been a long time getting to this point. It's too long of a time to get to this point, and here we are. So I hope that everyone comes with an open mind. We are, as Mike said, we're not only achieving a huge increase in rental revenue, we're also going to be receiving the airport improvement fee finances, which nearly double the rent. So I think that we are putting Danbury in a good place. And we are going to make it as attractive as possible to bring more business here. And just a side note, in 2019, now on hold since COVID, we had a business contact us, and this is one of a few, a business from North Carolina. They have 4 jets that belong to their company. They wanted to move their manufacturing company to Danbury. They want to move their 4 jets to Danbury. They employ 450 people. They want to construct a new office building with manufacturing in Danbury. The airport is a huge part of this possible move. Right now, we don't have the hangar space for that, but we do have the land that we can lease to these folks, and they can build their hangars, and they can then fly their people in and out. Amazon, when they came to put their building in their new distribution center, they landed in Danbury Airport their execs for meetings with the mayoral staff and contractors. The airport does get used. There is a significant need and attraction for Danbury Airport. It's high time that we utilize it. And we have a lot of infrastructure improvements on the way. Sharon knows about, of course, all the stuff that's going on downtown and the train and now the airport. And we are trying to make Danbury a very attractive space for our businesses. So at that, I'll leave it there. And if you have any more questions, please feel free to ask.
Thank you, Roger. Yeah, and I felt it was important that we all heard from Roger, just because this is more than just rolling over a lease. There's a lot of work going on in the background here. So, all right, with that, having heard from everybody, I'll begin with my panel, my ad hoc committee, which is Councilman Priola and Councilman Visconti. Are there any questions that you have to any of these individuals that are currently with us?
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
We'll start with Fred. Go ahead,
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Jack. One thing is the 8.2, the assessment fee. 90% would be paid by the tenant and another 10% by the city. Is that,
Okay.
I didn't get any response from the new information, never came up.
Okay, Fred. So if I could, I think I can answer that a little bit, and then I'll turn it over to either Bob or Mike. So this afternoon, we were right up till this afternoon revising some of that information. That was one of the real, one of the ones that we've reformulated to make it more clear so that everybody could better understand what was going on, because exactly what you're asking right now was an issue that I was having with it early on. So I sent to you a couple hours ago, you should have gotten and if you didn't, I can send it to you. There's revisions there that Bob had spoke to a little bit earlier that changes that. So Mike, I guess I'll turn it over to Mike Safranek. If you could just read off 8.2 as it now sits so that Fred can better understand it.
Sure. Taylor, can I share my screen? I can put it up on the screen for everybody. Taylor?
Yeah, no, I was changing the settings. It should work now.
Sorry. Okay. There we go. So this is going to replace 8.2 completely. And this was working with John Priola. John, I can't tell you thank you enough for making this so clean and easy.
So Mike, just quickly go through it so everybody.
Oh, sure. I'm sorry. Okay. So 8.2 is completely written. In addition to taxes set forth in Article 8.1 above, tenant will also be solely responsible for the new airport improvement fee. The airport improvement fee shall be equal to the per acre fee times the amount of acres leased, and increased each year in the same manner as the per acre fee increased. For sake of example, if the per acre fee is $8,000 per acre and 5 acres are leased, the AIF shall also be $8,000 per acre times 5 acres. Thus, the leased land shall be 40 and the AIF shall be additional 40. Now, let me make this very clear. The airport improvement fee is still going into the general fund. It's not going into a separate column or a separate entity. It's still going general fund. It's not being targeted just for the airport. It's just a simple way to show what monies are coming and going into the airport. So I want to make that very, very clear that this is general fund fees, just like anything else the airport generates.
So Mike, the 8.2 AIF fee now, that does away with the 90-10 deal?
Correct. It replaces it completely.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I do have
Yes, sir.
something, if I may, to Roger.
Absolutely. You got the floor, Fred.
I hope so. Roger, you just mentioned something about, I believe, a company that down south that is interested in perhaps doing some work up here, hangars and so on and so forth. And then you said that they have 4 jets, okay? My question is, we have the Lear jets coming in and over the house every day or whatever. It's a very residential zone, which I'm sure everyone is aware of. Are these the same size corporate jets as we have now, or or whatever?
They would be, Fred. We are limited as to what size jets can land and take off from Danbury Airport. So they wouldn't be bigger.
Okay,
So it would be something similar to what we are currently used to. And it's not like for instance, they don't, I did ask this question to be specific to them, as far as how often they take off and how many flights a day they have and things like that, because our airport being in a bowl, the echo and noise that comes out of that, and as well as it's surrounded by residences. And they said no more than 6 flights a week. So that's not a lot of flights. It's
no,
basically used just for their staff if they need to be in another place in the United States for a meeting or for something like that. The owner of the company also is a pilot, so he is an enthusiast, but he wouldn't be joyriding in a jet that holds 10 people. So it's I did take that into concern when I spoke with him, but that's where we're at with that. And I'm hoping that he connects with me back soon. We're supposed to have another meeting in the next 2 weeks to see where they stand on a potential move. COVID has certainly put a significant strain on companies' finances, and again, on how big they may need their new headquarters.
Right.
We're finding a lot of companies that are, rethinking the size of their, headquarters and workspaces due to COVID. A lot of people have gotten used to working from home. If they could use less square footage, they may just well and do that. But we'll see how that unfolds at the time. But at 6 flights a week with the jets that are similar to what we have.
Okay, follow up if I may, Roger.
Sure.
You also said that there is land available in the city to have this company be able to do what they want to do with hangars and so on, and 450 possible new folks getting a job. Can you mention where this land would be, or is that?
Fred, at this point, if I could, Roger, at this point, I'd like to stay more. I appreciate your question, Fred. It's 100%. I understand that. I'm trying to stay more focused on the lease at hand, as opposed to Roger's economic development statement. But Roger, if you want to answer his question, I don't want to cut you off, Fred, by no means. But let's try to be as brief as you can so we can move on.
It's west side of Danbury. That's as close as I can give you at the time, because there's no deal in place, Fred. But it's on the west side of Danbury. It's open land and it's privately owned, and it's
Okay.
owned correctly. So
That's
as good as I
that's
can.
good. That's good. Thank you. Go ahead, Jack.
Fred, thank you. Thanks for your question. Mr. Priola, is there anything you have?
Yeah, Mike, can you put that 8.2 up again? So if I'm understanding how the revenue is being generated, there's a rent fee, let's call it this 8,000 per acre. And we're saying that the airport improvement fee is going to mirror that. So that's another 8,000.
That's correct.
So we have the rent, we have the airport improvement fee, but there's also some tax income that we're going to get.
Yep. And that would be 8.1. And this is where Donna was actually able to clean this up beautifully. Am I sharing this?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
we can see that.
So what is the estimate with
The
this?
estimate would be,
at this
Mike,
time?
can you take Mike and put up on your screen the worksheet that we have illustrating all the numbers?
give me a second.
Okay, so if everybody could lay down on their side,
Okay, here we go.
there you go.
So
what we're looking,
I have here BAC and Danbury Aviation. The same gentleman, the Silvestros, own both of these. So once we do the BAC lease, we can go to, like we said, the Danbury Aviation lease right next to it. So these are the breakdowns of what we're looking at.
So right now, we're estimating the tax at $8,700 per acre.
That's for Danbury Aviation. That's the other parcel.
Yeah, no, just look at the BAC column,
Just look at
John.
BAC.
So,
Currently, we're collecting $34,250 annually.
Mhm.
With this new lease, we'll be collecting 102,700.
so the $8,000 is the driver.
Correct.
Right.
Correct. That's the lease on the land,
Yep.
and then the new airport improvement fee for parcel one.
Yep.
And then if he takes the option, which is parcel two, and so forth.
Mhm. And what is the current term of the lease that we're operating
We
under?
did modify it to 2020.
No, but the one current.
That expires in 2028, middle of the year, I think. So basically, another 7.5 years, give or take.
So is this lease getting added on to the end of that, or it's
No,
starting?
the old lease ends. This lease starts right now.
So I saw in the lease, it said the start date of January 1, 2021.
We
But
kind of
then it
missed
went out.
that just a little bit.
All right, so, but they went out into 2025 or 2026.
Originally, they were 225s, correct. We modified that.
So it's going to remain a 20 and a 20?
Correct.
Okay,
The consensus was 225s were just a little bit too long. The idea is that because the Silvestros want to build several $1 million worth of hangars, they need time to amortize their investment.
Mhm,
And that's why these leases are so long.
mhm. I have one more question. So right now we're looking at the BAC lease. And what is the story with the Danbury Aviation lease?
That is both the same person owns both parcels. Each
And when are we looking to do the DA lease
same basic terms.
Timeframes.
timeframe?
Time frame, same thing. Pretty much the exact same lease.
And when do you
Okay.
think that it's going to roll out? I think is the question that Sean's
Oh,
asking. When are we going to see that?
If you look down
Yes.
here, the DA lease ends 2029.
So the DA lease, we're not going to do anything with until 2029?
No. He wants to redo both of them. The Business Aircraft Center lease, BAC, that was the harder one to do, let's say. So we wanted to do the hard one first. Once we have that template set, now all the other ones become a lot easier.
And Reliant would be a similar formula?
Similar formula, correct. I didn't put
Okay.
that one up there because that's the next one, and I didn't want to get too convoluted.
So any new lease that comes up, so hypothetically, this business that Roger's talking about, they want land to build hangars.
Yep.
Hypothetically, they're gonna, if it happens in the next year, let's say, it's gonna be $8,000 per acre plus $8,000 of a airport improvement fee per
Correct.
acre and the real estate taxes.
That is correct. Now, what we did here was yes, that is correct.
So that's the model that's going to get worked off of as we move forward.
That is correct. The problem we ran into over the years, every lease had different components and you couldn't compare them anymore. Like I mentioned, some leases had a through the fence fee. Some leases paid land taxes. Some leases didn't pay land taxes. Some people paid user fees. It was just too convoluted to compare. So somebody would call up and say, okay, how much is a leased acre of land at Danbury? And I couldn't give them an honest answer because there were too many different ways of computing it.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Should I keep continue?
Take that down, please. Take that down if you would.
Okay, I shall.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Fred, any more before I turn it over to the ex officio?
Yeah, just very, very quickly, Mr. Chairman. I totally agree with what Mike just said. I was on the airport commission for about 10 years and the lease deals were absolutely horrendous trying to get everything done. So without a doubt in my mind, and I had about a 2-hour period with Mike at the airport and went over all of this. So I really think this is a great idea.
Okay. Mr.
Jack,
Criolla, thank you, Fred. Mr.
Follow-up
Criolla.
question. So the starting point, everything starts with that 8,000 per acre. how do we arrive at that number?
Mr. Safranik, do you want to answer that?
Sure. It
I
was.
know that it's you,
Sure.
your place to answer.
Sure. We started with the idea that we didn't know where to start with. So we kind of threw out a little high, a little low, and then we demanded that we're going to have the airport improvement fee to keep it uniform. So we were actually ended up at 16,000 an acre is what it came about to. So I think the Silvestros wanted like 5,000 an acre. We wanted, 18,000 an acre. And we kept going back and forth till we found the sweet spot that we all felt was a significant improvement in where we were. And it wasn't too much of a strangulation for them to be able to confidently invest in the airport moving forward. The last thing we want to do is we don't want to strangle a business and have them go belly up, if you will, or, not be able to make it, because it doesn't do anybody any good. We want, because we get a bad reputation, we don't want to be the airport that it's just too expensive to do business here. So we want to keep it, a happy balance, a happy medium, if you will. And Roger, myself, Mr. Esposito, I think Bob Yeaman was involved back then. I don't remember who else. We all thought this was like a good sweet spot, if you will.
Follow up, Jack?
Sure, go ahead, John.
It would be a follow-up to a follow-up.
Yep, exactly. Trying to be polite and follow the rules. So we're currently in a lease that's 30 years old.
I think it's about that, yes.
33.
And here we are 30 years down the road, and we're kind of looking at it and saying, it's really not supporting us. And we're about to go forward at a 25-year lease with a 25-year option.
20 and 20.
I'm sorry, 20 and 20. Do we feel the, I forget the term, but the 2%, 20 and 20? Again, using our history, looking back at what we've just come out of and how we feel about that now.
That's a great question. I don't think it's a bad starting point. See, the problem with the other leases, like we're looking at right now, and it's a great question. The other leases didn't have an annual CPI. So that's the only reason why they stagnated where they did. I think it was like every 5 years, they take a small step and a small step. We're increasing it every single year now. So we're increasing both sides of it. It's not just the lease side, it's also the airport improvement fee, that side that's going to increase. Now, the other thing you have to factor in, at least in a sense, once he builds the hangars, that's a $3 or $4 million addition to this parcel. And I don't know what the taxes will be, but I'm imagining a $3 million building would probably be an extra 30, 40 grand, thereabouts. I'm just throwing out numbers. I don't have an accurate number, and I don't want to lead you astray. But it's, we're increasing 300% on this lease. We can only do so much before it becomes unpalatable for a business to lease, because it's kind of like a marina, if you will. And if I want to use an analogy with boating, a marina can only hold so many boats. It can't, it's not like it's a Stop and Shop where you can bring more customers in, or a Starbucks. We can try to generate more traffic flow. A airport hangar can only hold so many planes. So there is a maximum amount of revenue that the individual owner can generate from his hangar, such as a marina. And at a certain point, it becomes unprofitable for him to do so, because we also have outdoor parking too. And it's not a tremendous amount of money what's being charged at the airport if you look at the amount of acreage that it takes to park planes.
Okay, John,
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
anything else? Okay. Having heard from our panel, or on the ad hoc here, I'll turn it over, open it up for questions from any of the additional ex officio members that are with us. So,
Mr. Chairman,
I'll start with Mr. Rotella, the big shot of the panel. Go ahead, Paul.
yeah, that's me. You can tell it says Paul's iPad on there, I mean, I tried to change that. I couldn't change it. I wanted it to say like exalted potentate or something, but I got stuck with that. So anyway, I'm not a shill for Apple. I got a million questions, and I think what I'm going to have to do is talk to Mike and a couple of guys offline, but just for the purposes of tonight, I'm looking at your chart, the one that you had up, the last particular one that you had up, and it looked to me like the leases were expiring in 2028 and 2029. Clearly, that's not the case. because we're talking about a 20 or 25 year lease with another 20 or 25 year extension. So I don't quite get what those numbers were in the bottom left. Because I was going to say an 8 or 9 year lease, that's not a long lease. 50-year lease, that's a long lease. 75, that's really long. But 25 is, we normally are comfortable doing 15, 20, 25. I don't understand this 8,000 and 8,000 business. I don't understand why we just don't call it 16,000. I don't understand what an airport fee is versus a lease on the land. I'm not clear on the taxes. I have a big issue with using a CPI that's set at the lowest rate in history. I think you have to go back to the 1950s to find a CPI of 2%, if it even was 2% back there. It has been 2% the last couple of years. But with the borrowing that the United States is going through right now, over the last 4 years and going forward, there's a strong possibility that as the dollar weakens and the CPI goes up, the value of this lease is going to keep decreasing. I think that CPI should be open-ended. I mean, I wouldn't, we don't own the airport, the taxpayers own it. We're representing them. It's their property. And to constrain them going forward for 50 years when all of us in this room were alive during periods of inflation that were hovering around 20%, and we could see that again, I think puts us at a disadvantage. That's what I have on the specifics of this lease, but we are talking about a couple of different things. The other thing we're talking about would be, as Mr. Palazzo had brought up, increase in airport use, which is kind of like where we're going with this. I am a big fan of the airport. And I'm also somebody who, not just talks the talk, but walks the walk. I live under a flight path, and I always have. My family does, friends of mine do, and I represent an area that's under the flight path. And these people have a stake in our decisions going forward. And I'm not sure it's exactly fair to them that we take it upon ourselves to improve the airport and in so doing solicit increase in flight frequency without taking them into consideration. This clearly is great for Danbury, and I am, like I say, not only a fan of the airport, but recognize its position in our toolbox. We have transportation, highway, rail. We have a lake. We have an airport. We have culture. There's a lot of things that Danbury has that it uses and needs to use to compete against other communities that are looking for the same edges that we have, like corporate relocation. The airport's a big part of that. And that benefits the 450 jobs that Roger was talking about, benefits all of Danbury, but it does so, or has the potential to do so at the expense of a small number of people. Spruce Mountain comes to mind, Jensen's, the President Streets, things like that, as Fred mentioned, Mountainville Avenue, the downtown area within a mile and a half of the airport. And I think something, perhaps an airport flight path a discount on taxes or something like that. If we granted in the 1970s, we probably had, and Mike can jump in anytime he feels like it. Feel free, Mike. But I think in the 1970s, our takeoff and landings were substantially higher than they are today, and a lot of people bought houses during that period, and they have enjoyed. There was the opposite of a premium, whatever that is, when you buy a house in an area where there's an issue like noise from an airport or a highway. That was included in the price, and as the frequency of the flights began to dwindle, the value of those properties went up because they were less affected by noise. But now they're coming back up. I get that. But a lot of people have bought in recently when the flights were lower, and as they increase with these jets, it's something that we're going to need to look at. So I would be remiss, I think, in voting against this going forward. But because I have so many questions, I'm not there yet. And if I have to tell you, if this came in front of me, as not just a representative of the 6th Ward, but as somebody who's concerned about the lease in general, I'm not sure I could go forward with this. So I'm going to need some more information. You guys are going to have to help me out with this. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Paul. And to that end, so what we're going to be doing is when this meeting is over, however, whatever direction it goes in, we'll get out to everybody so you can take a real solid look at it, all the details as they have been reconstructed. Because, back to what Freddie had said before, there was a thing in 8.2, it was very confusing. So, it was a little bit convoluted. We felt we cleaned that up. Back to your point, I mean, there's definitely, we're looking at, we're looking at an opportunity here. The question is, do we want to move forward with it or not? So there's a ton of variables that are involved in this. You can draw those variables in from all different directions. I think I'm trying to stay, at this point in time, I'm trying to stay focused on the financial aspect of this. And if it truly is the right thing for that particular piece of property for us moving forward. So that being said, somebody had their hand up. Mr. Safranek has a brief comment.
Respond, Mr. Chairman, about that, just to follow up. This is exactly what I'm talking about. The specifics of this lease, you guys have been working on it for like 4 months, right up to this afternoon. I haven't even seen it yet. I'm seeing it for the first time now. So I think members of the council, I'm not really speaking for them, but I kind of am. I think we're going to need, I'm not saying we're going to need 4 months to get where you guys are now. We're going to need more than a couple of minutes. That's all.
Understood.
Thanks.
Mr. Safranek.
Yes, Councilman Rotello, please reach out to my office. Come on down. I have a big whiteboard in my office, and Freddie will tell you. I can spell it all out for you. We can spend a couple hours, have a cup of coffee, and I'll answer all of your questions.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Appreciate that, Mike. I'm going to take you up on that.
Please do.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay. Any other councilman? Mr. Perkins. Got to take your mute off, buddy. Mute. There you go.
Sorry about that. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to follow up on a couple of items that were mentioned by some of my fellow council members. I too support the revenue generation aspect of this whole process with the purpose of increasing business. I mean, that's one of the underlying principles behind this whole thing. And through that will be the creation of additional hangars. Hangars may want to increase the number of sorties, planes taking off, planes landing. We talked a lot about that, but what I'd like to see, in addition to some of the information requested already, is taking the current numbers into effect. What would be the percent increase in the number of landings and takeoffs over the next 1, 3, 5 years? So as part of this whole data collection process, I would like to see some of those numbers, because I represent people who are right directly in that flight path. So there has to be some type of understanding and compromise about the number of activity that will increase over the next several years. But in addition to that, I would like to go ahead and accept what some of my other colleagues have said regarding this matter, mainly Councilman Rotello. But I would like to see the contract, as well as the information I just mentioned about the number of flights. So if they can get that over to us, that would be great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, thank you, Dwayne. Mr. Safranek.
Councilman Perkins, same thing, please. Give me a call. Come on down to the airport. I would love to, spell it all out for you. Just to quickly touch on what you asked about the increase in flights. I don't particularly see a dramatic increase in flights per se, because what we're doing is we're taking these $1 million planes that are outside and giving them a home. So I don't necessarily see we're going to bring in, hundreds of more planes. That's not going to happen. The hangars that are being built, you might be able to hold maybe 10 planes in each one of the size, maybe 12 or 13. We're not bringing in big jets. These are 4-seaters. These are, they're smaller, but they're, like I said, they're still $1 million planes. And that's what this mostly is. From what Councilman Rotello had said, we are down about 300% in traffic where we were in the 80s and 90s. We're doing about 60,000 touch and goes a year. 60,000 operations, what they call it. Every time a plane touches the ground, it's considered an op. So we do about 60,000 a year. That's a solid number. That number has been pretty consistent, if not going down, over the last 5 years. So this is not going to be a massive influx of new aircraft for the most part. I don't have an exact number how it's going to increase because I can't really tell you who's already here that's going to move inside. And that's the unknown for the most part.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I don't think I'm supposed to direct the airport administrator directly, but I mean, we're talking leases that can change hands. So part of the concept is to have large planes, but what if that turned into another venture, another interest?
The airport is, I'm sorry, I apologize. The airport is, the actual size of the aircraft is defined by how small the runway is. Right now, the biggest aircraft that can come in is probably like a CJ4, give or take. And
Please.
what we're looking at niche-wise
Let me
is...
interrupt you for a second.
Sure, please.
Please. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying,
Oh, I'm sorry.
what if those larger planes decided not to house their planes here? The deal broke apart and another prospect came in who had interest in having more planes fill that larger space. Would that be acceptable?
Well, it would be a private entity, so he can lease his hangar to whoever he thinks is the best deal for the business. But like I said, with the marina analogy,
Hold on. Mr.
Sorry.
That's my whole point.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
That's my whole point. So if the larger plane that wouldn't take up a lot of air traffic was not to be part of this location, and another company came in that had a larger fleet of planes, that would increase the number of flights per day. And what I'm saying is,
sure,
that's something that we have to look at, because the deal you're describing could just change at any time. And the fact that we're trying to build out this location with more hangars with a streamlined leasing process, it could still result in more flights per day. And I'm just trying to get a feel for those increases. But I do have a baseline, and I'm going to end right now, of about 60,000 or so per year.
Okay. Dwayne, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, but we have with us Sharon Calitro. We did get a positive report from the Planning Commission. I would have to believe, and Sharon, you might be able to answer this, that something like this gets vetted at their level when the new building that may be built down the road gets built, as well as any buildings that are built. So Sharon, am I wrong in that assessment, or can you reflect on that?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. So the Planning Commission considered the request for referral, which was to lease a portion of the property. So we just looked at the lease, and we made some comments relative to it is section 7.1. I don't know, that wasn't a section that was indicated tonight that was changed. I haven't seen any changes to it, and that just had to do with getting the appropriate approvals. So again, we really didn't look at anything in the future. We just wanted to make sure the language was clear enough that the lessee knows they have to get the proper approvals from the department and or the appropriate respective departments if they want to make any changes. So we just looked at that portion of it.
Thank you. Dwayne, you're moving around quite a bit, so I got a feeling you have another question.
So this is all under the accordance of FAA flight patterns and everything else. Has that already been included in this whole checklist of approval?
So Mike, I think, yeah, I think what the question is does this get, anytime you do an airport improvement, does it get vetted through the FAA for it to fit within the realm of what our airport does?
Oh, in terms of the hangar itself, sure.
Yeah.
The FAA is going to have what's called an obstruction analysis. It's a 7460 study, but they're not looking at anything but will this hangar impact the approach surface or the departure corridor. That's all they're going to look at. They're going to look at whether or not it meets local zoning laws and EIC laws and things like that, which Sharon has made sure that that was in there and reaffirmed. Other than that, the FAA doesn't really comment on leases. They want the most efficient use of the airport and the airport space. And we have what's called the Airport Compliance Manual, and it follows all the Airport Compliance Manual aspects. This is more of a local kind of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Perkins. Any of the other ex officio members? I don't see anybody here. All right, then. I guess that we'll close it down. Mr. Priola, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I would make a motion at this point, if this is the right time in the meeting for that.
Yeah, I'm closing off the meeting to any further discussion. So I need to have that motion first. So we're going to close off the meeting to any further discussion.
So moved.
All those in favor, which is you and Freddie, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, opposed? All right. That being said, Mr. Priola.
I would move that we take a step back, kind of regroup, gather some more information, because I think there's still some questions that need to be addressed. And then come back to complete this ad hoc
So-
at some point in the future. Yes,
So your motion is to extend the ad hoc until
extend, yes.
further issues can be addressed.
Yes,
So the motion was made to extend the ad hoc until further issues can be addressed.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
need
if I
I
may,
need a second, if I could,
if- before a second. is
before you
done,
second, sure.
and I'll be quick, I hope. I have to totally agree with John. We're talking about a lot of different things here. And I know that the airport needs to be taken care of, the leases, so on and so on. But as I said, I agree with John, and I will second his motion.
Okay. So the motion has been made and seconded. All those in favor of extending the ad hoc? John, Fred?
Aye.
Positive, I'll vote in the positive on that. All those opposed? Okay, motion's made and carried. So this, we will review. So just for housekeeping matters, we will review everything that was discussed this evening. We will get copies of the updated lease as per the attorneys to make sure that the information going out is full and it's in its entirety. And we'll reconvene when we have that information. Okay.
Very
move to
good.
adjourn.
Motion
Second.
made to adjourn by Mr. Priola, seconded by Mr. Visconti. I want to thank everybody that was in attendance tonight for your help. You know, the department heads and department people that have helped me. Thank you for through this process.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Good night,
Thank you.
everybody.
Okay.